Hello, and welcome to another episode of Star Wars Breaking Canon, a podcast where we break down and analyze each live-action entry in the Star Wars universe, from the original trilogy to The Mandalorian and beyond. I'm James Callahan.
I'm Joseph McCorkle.
I'm Julius Freeman.
On today's episode, we'll be discussing 1983's Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, written by Lawrence Kasdan and George Lucas, and directed by Richard Marquand. So, Return of the Jedi. I thought maybe I would just go ahead and give you guys my thoughts on this movie first, just kind of briefly cap off a story that I started when we were talking about A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. And I do think that my experience with this movie is similar to a lot of people and how they came to this film first, and especially at a certain age, and then maybe they're sort of like relationship and how it changed over the years with it, because this is, kind of a film that a lot of people, they don't like it that much. It's a bit of a disappointing film in a lot of people's eyes, and that's something I really wanted to kind of investigate over the course of this episode with you guys, is try to figure out, why do people dislike this movie so much? And so basically, if you guys recall, I saw A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back during their special edition within the same weekend. And I couldn't wait for the release of Return of the Jedi to know what happened. So that weekend, I went to my friend's house and we basically watched Return of the Jedi, I think the same day that we saw Empire Strikes Back. And so at that point, I knew the whole trilogy, and just by default, Return of the Jedi was my favorite film of the three. And for years, I would say, like, oh, of course, Return of the Jedi is the best one because it's the one that has a conclusion. It's the one where everything happens exactly the way you were hoping for. The Empire's defeated, Vader's defeated and redeemed, Anakin's redeemed rather. It just seemed like a default choice for best of the series. And then as I got older, I realized that because it's a film that gives you everything you think you want from a conclusion to this trilogy, that's kind of what also makes it disappointing. And I realized that over the years, it was the film that I didn't return to as much because there's really nothing challenging in it at all. It's just everything in it kind of ends and concludes exactly the way you're hoping for. So I really bought into the backlash on this movie for years. And there would be times where I would even say, oh, it's a bad film. It's a bad sequel. And I've come full circle on it. Now I love the film a lot, and I've come to accept it for what it is rather than what it could have been or what fans hoped it would have been. So Julius, tell me about the first time you saw the movie. Tell me if you had a similar reaction to it over the years, and kind of where you stand on it now.
No, actually, I had the opposite effect. I love Return of the Jedi. It's my second favorite of the trilogy. Third is The New Hope. So it's Empire, Return of the Jedi, and then New Hope. I loved it because I just love the fact that Luke Skywalker came back as a badass in this one, confident, maybe a little overconfident. He embraced a little bit of his dark side. It looks like, he's wearing all black, even though he's a Jedi, but he's like completely all blacked up, like kind of emulating his dad in a lot of ways. It's kind of weird, right? He finds out that Darth Vader's his dad, and he decides, you know what? I'm going to emulate my dad.
I'm going to dress up like him.
Exactly. I want to catch up for lost time that I missed with my father. I thought it was a great ending to the trilogy. It was, for me, it was the way the trilogy should have ended, in a happy note, because I'm a sucker for happy endings. Although I do like my tragic endings every so often, I do sometimes prefer a film not end a happy note, because obviously sometimes real life doesn't end. Life doesn't really end in happy notes a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But every once in a while, the reason why cinema is such a powerful medium of storytelling for me, anyway, is because it's an escape. It's kind of a sort of escapism, right? That's the reason why people go to the theater, is to escape from the harsh reality. So I thought it was a great ending. The Emperor, the character of the Emperor Palpatine was great. A great, I guess, opposite of what Luke was trying to accomplish. And I love that whole, the scenes between Luke and him, and they're kind of playing this mental chess game with each other to get the other one to turn or to blink. But overall, The only complaint I really have about Return of the Jedi is the Ewoks. That's pretty much the only thing I have. But I understood why. Now, as I got older, I understood why they were added there, because maybe Lucas thought, I want to make this more into a kid-friendly franchise, so I'm going to add these characters so that way I can sell more toys to children, which probably what did help when the Ewoks were introduced in Return of the Jedi. But watching it again last night, I still loved it. Yeah, it's a little cheesy, a lot more cheesy than the second one, the Empire. And it seemed like it was more of a cash grab type of deal, but it still worked for me. It still worked for me because it tied up all loose ends, and it was a great ending to the Skywalker saga.
Joseph, tell me about your thoughts about it.
I think I can see where you're coming from. I rewatched this again for the first time in a long time, and I thought there was a lot there to like that I didn't appreciate when I was younger. But I think like you're kind of saying about how this is very much a film about endings and about resolving already in place storylines is real, because it's kind of a third act film. And in the third act, you kind of stop introducing new ideas, new characters, and you really just focus on the plot elements that have already been introduced and resolving all of those. So in Return of the Jedi, we do get the Emperor is new, and I guess Ewoks are kind of new, and and all that, but really like the thrust of the story is not, it's answering questions, it's resolving situations, whereas like the possibility in say episode 1 before you saw it was like huge compared to like what you think is going to happen in Return of the Jedi, or even the sequel trilogy, because we were not sure where that was going to go. In Return of the Jedi, it's I almost feel like it shouldn't be counted against it, but I mean, obviously we can take everything into account, but it is like kind of a quieter movie. Like you have these moments where Luke and Vader are on that like boarding vessel, and you just kind of feel like this is like some quiet corner off somewhere, and it's not like the richness of the universe that we felt in like A New Hope, for instance. It's like just kind of tying up loose ends.
Yeah, this film seems to take on the more personal aspect of the revelation in Empire with, of course, Vader being Luke's father, and just kind of just exploring that in a way where, that challenging notion that was brought at the very end of that film and left people waiting for 3 years about, with just left to wonder if that was real, if it was true, was Vader joking, lying, whatever. And it's pretty immediate in Return of the Jedi that no, Vader's his father, and these are the consequences of the revelation that came about. And Julius, what you were saying about Luke coming in suddenly older, wiser, I think less of a chip on his shoulder. He seems burdened by something, and he also seems to be a lot wiser than he was the last time we saw him, which is where he really comes into the character I think that his whole arc was leading to with the first 2 films. Anything that was annoying about him in the first 2 films has kind of all like sort of culminating him into him being the hero, and arriving at the destination of his hero's journey, basically. And it seems in the beginning of this film and throughout the film, he has a very specific idea of what his fate is. He knows that for this all to be pulled off the way that he wants to be pulled off, he's probably not going to survive. That he's going to distract Vader and distract the Empire and the Emperor while the rebels destroy the Empire, and he'll die with them, basically. And of course that doesn't happen. Of course you get the happy ending with the little tied, little bow on it, and there's nothing really controversial about it. This status quo is kind of reestablished, and anything that Empire did to disrupt anything is kind of like put back into balance in a way that I think may have been initially satisfying for a lot of viewers, but maybe rubs people right. And it was for me too when I was younger, when I was 11 or 12, when I saw the film. This was the one that made me really excited to play with my toys and to just, knowing what the complete arc of these characters was. But then at the end of it, there's nowhere else to go after that. You destroyed the Empire. Everyone lives happily ever after. there's like no gray area anymore. You know, all our heroes won, the bad guys are destroyed, and I don't know. It's one of those things where even though I was kind of disappointed that we were getting prequels after I realized that's what Lucas was working on after the special editions were released, I still felt like there really wasn't anywhere to go after Return of the Jedi. You know, once you defeat the Empire, where is there to go? And so that was kind of like over time, my mixed feelings towards the film sort of developed in that. And then of course you have the Ewoks, as was brought up, which is like, it's definitely the thing that people bring up the most when they want to knock this film down. Is you bring up the Ewoks, and I feel like they're a thing that fans have dwelled upon for so long and have criticized for so long that I don't think they're that bad, personally. I think they're actually kind of okay. They're cute, they're fun, whatever.
I didn't have a problem with the Ewoks. It was just a little bit too unbelievable. In my, even to this day, even as a kid, I still thought it was a little too unbelievable. Like, really, it's all I had to do was just throw rocks at these stormtroopers and they die, they fall over and kill and dead. Like, that's it? Oh,
right.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. But that was my only complaint about that movie. The rest I loved. I mean, like Joseph mentioned earlier, that scene with Luke and Vader in that hangar. It felt like I was watching a Shakespearean play almost. The way they were talking to each other, the way he was turning around, all dramatic, and like walking over to the rail, like, "Father, you're my father, though. I won't fight you," that type of deal. And but I loved it. Like I said, I'm a sucker for those kind of things, so I was all about it. But yeah, the Ewoks was the only thing that I could see why people would, or especially fans of trilogy, wouldn't be their favorite part of the movie, were the Ewoks.
Right. And I think it's maybe the darkness that is presented in Empire and how personal it becomes and how character driven, that maybe if you were of a certain age, if you were like 12, 13 when you saw Empire Strikes Back, and then you're 16 or whatever when Return of the Jedi comes out, you don't expect this clean resolution and the Emperor's best troops being destroyed by teddy bears armed with sticks and stones. And I definitely understand the criticisms about that. It does make sense to me. I don't know. It does tie into the whole, children's film aspect of the film.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It also works really well thematically with just like a very consistent theme in Star Wars, that organic and individual and like free is always going to triumph over mechanical and orderly and imperial.
Right. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I think as clumsy as that message is communicated, it's still effective in this film. And when the Ewoks and our friends, they destroy the Empire, when they blow up the shield generator and everything, it feels really victorious. And even if it's kind of dumb that they, put together these logs that, smash these AT-ST walkers and stuff, it is, no, there's a lot of catharsis to it. I do enjoy it. And I really have to, I think, put on like my sort of like switch my brain to toxic fanboy to really start to tear this movie down, which is actually kind of something that I also wanted to bring up about this movie, is that, do you guys think this is where toxic Star Wars fandom kind of begins? Because it really explodes with the prequels, but I do think that part of it was there as I was learning about these films, where I was kind of told, "Oh, you're a child. You're obviously not a real Star Wars fan if Return of the Jedi is your favorite one."
I imagine the toxic fandom started in the prequels. That's when I started hating Star Wars was during the prequels. And I was one of those toxic fanboys who was like, "You like the prequels? You're not a real Star Wars fan, man. That's crap."
I think you've told me that before.
Yeah, and I tell you that. Come on, James, I wouldn't tell you that. I only tell those people who I don't respect. So,
thank you, appreciate it.
No, but on the real though, I think I don't know. I never heard of people bashing Star Wars fans for liking Return of the Jedi.
I do think that there was kind of just like already that sentiment of like, Luke has killed my childhood, starting with Return of the Jedi. One time I found this old Usenet archive, and Usenet was basically like, before the World Wide Web, it was this online forum system that you could post on. And it went back to the middle 70s. So at the time that A New Hope came out, there were already threads, and you can search this on Google. There were already people posting about it in 1977. And I think that, like, you know, there was a mythology that was set up with A New Hope and the cultural event that was. And then it was like doubled by Empire and how they kind of knocked that out of the park. And then after that, it's like, it's really hard to like pull a three-peat on that, you know? Especially when Return of the Jedi was the film that was like everybody was left with for 16 years after that.
So did Return of the Jedi invent trolling and shitposting?
Maybe.
In addition to toxic fandom? My God.
I do know that in the 80s when the Comic Cons were still kind of like in their infant stage, the science fiction community, the sci-fi fan community anyway, they freaking loved Star Wars. They were all about Star Wars when they came out. And during the cons, from what I read and what I researched, they were, yeah, like you said, they were pretty toxic. It's like the equivalent of toxic fandom today. They would hang out at these cons and just talk about the lore of Star Wars. What's going to happen in the next movie? What should happen in the next movie? And, you know, hoping that Lucas would take it to the direction they were hoping they would take it to. And I could just imagine that when Empire came out, or even Return of the Jedi came out, I would imagine a big chunk of those hardcore sci-fi fans that organized these conventions were probably disappointed at the direction that Lucas took it to, maybe, for all we know.
A lot of the criticisms from, I think, maybe the toxic fan community, I don't know, they kind of track. And I think that there were a lot of years where I just avoided Return of the Jedi. If I was going to go watch some Star Wars movies, I would just watch A New Hope and Empire and be like, yeah, I know how this ends, whatever. But I think it's been in recent years. I think after Disney acquired Star Wars was when I started to reevaluate the films, the original trilogy, acknowledge the impact that those films had on my life, and also to acknowledge that the prequels were compelling films that weren't nearly as bad as their reputation. And that was when I discovered, wait, Return of the Jedi actually kind of rules. This movie's amazing. Yeah. Like, if you have these high expectations and you think it's supposed to reinvent the wheel, yeah, you're going to come up disappointed. But as far as, you know, a thrilling conclusion goes, there's a lot of great stuff in this movie. And
absolutely,
you know, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, so we can kind of go, you know, a little bit in order of how everything happens plot wise in this film. But yeah, I mean, especially in the back half of this movie, there's a lot of great stuff. And so, yeah, I do hope that maybe we can set the record a little bit straight on this movie and, you know, reveal it to be maybe a better film than its reputation. So this movie came out 3 years after Empire, but it takes place a year after the events of The Empire Strikes Back. And it's 4 years after the Battle of Yavin. So now that Shadows of the Empire is Legends, it's not canon anymore, I kind of wonder what our friends were doing for a full year without Han Solo.
Yeah, regrouping. I would imagine the rebellion is strategizing the next move. And, you know, like the way Leia treated her home planet, the show must go on, right? She probably said, you know what, Han has to take a back seat for the time being, but we have to refocus our efforts to counterattacking the Empire after, you know, them defeating them, the rebellion and the Empire. Not really defeating them, but, you know, the battle that they had in Cloud City, or what happened in Cloud City anyway. And, you know, kind of reassess the situation. Maybe, and that takes time. You know, rebellions are not easy. You gotta work in secret. You gotta work covertly. You gotta make sure the person that you trust is not working for the Empire or the enemy. So I can imagine that would take a lot of time. So, yeah, it's even though Shadows of the Empire is not part of canon anymore, which is a shame. I hope Disney will change their minds and actually bring it back into canon, because Shadows of the Empire was pretty dope.
I think that they're taking that era right now. I think they're exploring it in the comics, the events between Empire and Jedi and
Marvel Comics. Okay, that makes sense.
They did that between A New Hope and Empire, and I read some of that stuff, and it was pretty cool.
By the way, for the record, those comic books they're like one of the top selling comic books that Marvel has today, which is telling that a lot of people still are looking for that extra stuff from Star Wars from outside the films and the TV show. So, you know, good for Disney for keeping the comic books alive.
Yeah, and as far as the publishing world goes, I prefer having my Star Wars in comic book form than in literary form because so much of Star Wars is visual.
Hmm.
And so when I was going through those comics, I was like, "Oh, this is absolutely the preferred medium for this." So
Yeah.
I'm kind of pumped for to read the comic eventually that takes place between Empire and Jedi. I'm just waiting for it to be finished. I don't want to like go issue by issue, but
Gotcha.
so another thing that is a huge complaint that is lodged against this film is the fact that it recycles the Death Star from the first film. Is this something that bugs you guys?
I mean, it goes with the Emperor's theme of like hubris and like just kind of the brute force nature of the Empire. So I don't feel like it's like completely terrible. Would it have been cooler if there was like an entirely new concept? Possibly.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I personally dug it. I love the imagery of the non completed Death Star and how they're like hurrying up to complete it because they want to get back to their to inflict the fear into the universe with this Death Star weapon. And I always thought that was a great image, and I still love it to this day. And I didn't think, yeah, in a way it is cheating. In the writer's point of view, it is cheating, but at the same time, you also have to remember that movie audiences are creatures of habit. You can't change too much too fast because they like to consume what they already know. Especially American audiences. So that's probably I understand why George Lucas did it because something entirely new would have been great in terms of the hardcore fan base, but the common viewer, the one who is the audience who's not fans of sci-fi, they just like Star Wars because of the story. Then yeah, why not? Why not keep the Death Star back and bring it back, but not complete it, but like half complete it, so that way you have that cool image of that still in progress Death Star, and it added to the story. It added to the tension in the story when the rebellion thinks it's not operational, but then you find out that it is operational, and that's what raises the stakes in the story, which is great. A great piece of writing.
It is really good, effective storytelling, and I do definitely agree that from a storytelling perspective, it's recycling really good bits from another movie, but especially when you take into consideration the prequels, which are kind of chronicling the creation of the Death Star, that it
Right.
was kind of Palpatine's baby for decades, and all he had to do was become emperor and basically get rid of the Republic to raise the funds to
Yeah.
make a Death Star. I can kind of imagine he's like, all right, fine, they destroyed the first one, we're going to make it bigger and better because this is my life's work, this is the Sith's life work,
Yeah.
and our legacy that's tied into this. So I don't know. I definitely give this movie a free pass when it comes to recycling that.
Well, I think like even before seeing the sequels, it was kind of like you had the first Death Star, and it was like, yeah, it was this terrifying weapon, but it could have been arbitrary. But at this point, after 9 Star Wars movies, the concept of like a planet destroying weapon is like it's like the Empire's signature thing now, basically.
Yeah.
Like it comes up 3 times in the overall saga, and it's very much about that, like the Emperor's desire to intimidate and to make innocent people squirm, and it really, like, again, it like flows back into his character. It actually really works.
Yeah. Can you imagine if we had a rogue leader who decided to put satellites up with like nuclear weapons? That's like, hey, if this city doesn't fall in line, I'm just gonna nuke you off the map.
We do have those weapons, James. It was called, oddly enough, you know what that was called?
Star Wars?
It was called the Star Wars Initiative. It really was. Ronald Reagan in the 80s created the Star Wars Initiative, and that was really a laser beam weapon that will hit a nuclear facility or a nuclear warhead that's launched from a different country.
It's kind of interesting to imagine him watching Star Wars and learning all the wrong lessons from it. Hey, Palpatine had some good ideas, guys. So speaking of Palpatine, one of the things I love about this movie, and I do distinctly remember this the first time I saw the movie, because I didn't know that we were going to get the Emperor in it. I didn't realize he was going to play a key role. And I love that the opening teaser of just like the one scene where Vader shows up on the unfinished Death Star and says that the Emperor is coming. And then he throws out that line, I hope that this is going to be finished for your sake because the Emperor is not as forgiving as I am, which the implications of that are huge because Vader is famously unforgiving about everything. And what's worse than getting choked on video chat, you know?
Yeah, that was a great scene, a great setup. You know, a nice build up to get the audience ready for like, oh my god, this Emperor is going to be freaking like even more evil than Darth Vader. Is that even possible? And you find out, yeah, it is possible. And it was that was a great opening sequence. I'm not a big fan of Loris Kazdan as a screenwriter, as later on as he progressed as a screenwriter. But this was like some fine writing on his part. It's also alongside with George Lucas, because I think he co-wrote it with him too, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so George Lucas has the sole story credit. And then my understanding is that he worked on the screenplay with Kasdan. And the deal that they made was that Lucas would help Kasdan get his directorial debut off the ground if he came back to help out on this script.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's how that worked out. But no, I do kind of agree. I think that, you know, with Kasdan, his big bag of tricks was just kind of emptied between Empire and Raiders, which are two of the greatest screenplays ever written. So hey, you know,
I'll agree with that.
So after that opening scene, we're in Jabba's palace, and one of the things that I love about the first act of this movie, which when I was younger, I kind of felt like the Jabba stuff was a little unnecessary. It doesn't really affect the plot too much, whether they get Han back or not. At least it doesn't seem so. Like they could probably do without him. And to have the first, 30 to 40 minutes be specifically about getting Han Solo back on the team. There were years where I would just say like, oh, it feels like, Lucas was scrambling for material and maybe he didn't have enough. So he put this whole elaborate thing together. Now, when I watch it, I still think you could kind of make that argument, but some of my favorite stuff in Star Wars is in this Jabba's Palace stuff. And I really love the way our lead characters are kind of dished out in piecemeal, like little by little as the plan of the rescue comes into focus, which has to be one of the most confusing and ridiculous plans I've ever seen in a movie. Like, I don't understand the idea of giving away the droids, of letting Lando get or letting Chewie get captured, but then Luke is going to come, but then Luke is going to get captured. I mean, I don't know. Everything seemed to have worked out exactly the way that they thought it would.
I love the Jabba scene. That whole Jabba sequence was great because it added to the Star Wars lore. Here's this big fat slug, sitting there in his throne. It was a great symbolic like mob boss.
Absolutely.
This the overweight mob boss who's heavyweight because of the spoils of his taking everything and stealing everything and taking it all for himself. And I loved it. I loved his bar. You mentioned, James, about how they could have done without Han Solo. I disagree. I think they needed Han Solo because A, he's a great pilot. B, he's very kind of like I don't want to say dangerous, but he takes risk, and a lot of the time he makes it through the risk that he takes, and I think that's why they needed him back, because they were preparing for this new attack on this new Death Star, right? So they had to have someone like Han Solo on their team so that way they can get it done. And the whole. Yeah, you're right. The when I was watching it last night, I was like, how did this plan work out? How did Luke know this was going to work out? Like, wait a second. And so can he see into the future? And he just had to make sure everyone was in place to make sure that he was in the right place. That way he can get it done the way he got it done. And so maybe that's what convinced me, okay, maybe that's what it was. He was meditating and he saw glimpses of the future and he realized, okay, I have to be here in this spot in order for this to work. And maybe that's why it was all kind of chaotic, but in reality, it was actually purposely done so that way Luke can get to the spot where we need to go to save Han Solo. But yeah, I love that. Was it just me, guys, or did Jabba remind you of Harvey Weinstein?
Yeah, no, I got that when I watched it again. I was just like...
Right, yeah, because I was watching it, I was like, why am I seeing Harvey Weinstein's fat, smug face on Jabba right now?
Especially when he does the thing with the tongue. It just felt very Weinstein, very Harvey.
It's like, oh, did Harvey Weinstein watch this movie and be like, I want to be like that guy. I want to be like Jabba the Hutt.
I'm sure he did.
I want to keep women in chains and tickle my tongue. Soon, one day, you'll appreciate it.
It's an archetype,
Yeah, it truly is, man. It truly is. And there's a reason why it's an archetype, right? I love Jabba, and I saw an old behind the scenes featurette about how they created Jabba the Hutt, and they showed different sketches of what the way he would want to look, and Lucas was the one who pointed out the slug. I guess he had a team of artists that kind of draw a bunch of different concept art, and he saw the slug and he was like, "Ew, I like this one. Let's go with this." And that's when they created the Jabba the Hutt. And I thought it was a great choice because that's perfect. A slimy, sluggy character who has no morals, doesn't care about anyone but himself, and I thought it was perfect. I love the Jabba the Hutt scenes. I just wish they didn't. I wish they didn't change the original song from the original Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
because that song is terrible, man. That new one, I had to go on YouTube and cleanse myself and watch the original one on YouTube. This is a lot better than the new one.
It would be interesting. Now there's, a great deal of expanded universe stuff about the Hutts, but it would have been cool if we were introduced to the Hutts after Return of the Jedi and we found out that they're actually all naturally very thin and athletic, and that Jabba is just sort of the outlier.
That'd be kind of cool, actually.
I'm really glad that you brought up that whole idea behind, did Luke meditate this whole plan into fruition? Because I'm sure I've come to that conclusion before, but I was really thinking about it this time when I was watching, and I was like, oh, that is a good way to explain this away. Whether it seems a little too contrived from a storytelling perspective, if you look at it from the perspective of him using the Force and using the insights that he learned from Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back, stands to reason that he, maybe meditated that he needed to go to Tatooine and he needed to put these pieces on the table in order for it to have the conclusion he's looking for.
I think it was a good illustration of how far Luke has come. He's been brave before, but when he walks into Jabba's palace this time around, he kind of has a new confidence in himself that we haven't seen before. And I think it's a good counterpoint to where he was at when they go to Mos Eisley in A New Hope, where in that case, he needed a wise old sage as his companion, and he needed to kind of, get the hotshot pilot who knew how the underground worked to ferry him off planet. This time around, it's him leading the charge, and he's in command. He's parlaying with Jabba, and he's not afraid about it. He like you guys are saying, he walks into this the situation without all the pieces in place, and just kind of uses the Force to kind of improvise a little bit here, but he's comfortable with that. And that's it does seem like he's matured a lot between Empire and Jedi, and the Jabba's Palace sequence gives us a chance to actually dramatize that before he goes off to the ultimate big bad, the kind of more mind focused conflict with the Emperor.
Going back to what you were saying about when we first see Luke, when he's coming in those doors, I thought it was kind of interesting. I don't know if I ever really thought about it in this way, but it seems like he uses the Force to break into Jabba's palace. So he's already got a breaking and entering charge on his record on Tatooine.
Hey man, there's no Jedi Council these days, so
that's true. That's true. Which is why he then goes and starts force choking Gamorrean guards, which I don't know if a lot of Jedi were doing that back in the Jedi day. Just like, hey, I need entry here, and these guards are in my way, so I'm just going to force choke them. And then he uses the mind trick on Bib Fortuna. I mean, he's just like straight up using the Force in kind of ways that, being dressed all in black, seem like, hey, did he kind of turn to the dark side, or is he in some kind of weird gray area there? And it isn't until you get to kind of the end of the first act that you realize, no, he's the same Luke as before, just more of a skilled Jedi and just wiser than he was the last time we saw him.
I'll call him more of a realist Jedi.
Okay.
That's why I saw that. I saw it as like, okay, there's no Jedi Council. He doesn't have any sense of what the old order was like. So, hey, I got these powers. I need to save my friends who I love. They're my family. So I'm going to do whatever I can to save them. And if that means kind of, toting the line of dark side and light side, then so be it. And, he still, as we'll talk later, he still managed to keep that light intact. Even though he flirted with the dark side with his outfit, and also, like you mentioned, the tactics that he did in when the moment he enters Jabba's palace.
Before he shows up at Jabba's palace, I wanted to ask you guys about this because this was kind of a big deal to me when I was a kid. I loved the droids, I think, as much as anybody growing up. Did you guys think it was weird that he was so willing to give away C-3PO and R2-D2? Like, what if Jabba was like, all right, cool, you can have Han back now, but I want to keep your droids? It really bummed me out as a kid to think, are the droids expendable? Like R2 and 3PO, like these great droids? I don't know. That obviously they're going to be in the rest of the movie, but I just remember, like, even the first time I saw it being like, wait a minute, he's willing to give them away? Like he could just go to the droid shop and buy 2 more?
Technically, he can.
I mean, that's true.
Well, it's one of those calculated risks, It's I'm going to put my 2 beloved droids, up for sale and hoping that this vague Jedi plan I have in my head works out. Maybe that was rolling the dice. I'm going to roll the dice on this one.
I think like starting it off with the droids is a good way to kind of amp up tension by placing these kind of non-combatant characters in the first line of defense here.
That's true too. Yeah. Definitely also leaving 3PO in the dark about it too.
Yeah.
Because I love when he finds out in the message that he's being given away.
Well, because I'm sure Luke knows that C-3PO is a blabbermouth and he would have just gave it out.
Yeah. He can't trust him with a secret.
Yeah, no, he can't.
R2, you can trust with all the secrets, but 3PO...
R2 is gangster, man. R2 knows what's up. He knows how to keep a secret.
R2's always like 3 steps ahead of 3PO, I swear.
Yeah. And then when you listen to him talk to him, especially in the lead up to going into the palace, you're just like, oh, wow, he's totally humoring 3PO this whole time. Yeah. He's like, oh, are you nervous about this? Why? Tell me why you're nervous, And just like he knows the whole time what's going to happen. It's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So another thing that Luke does that proves his qualities as a Jedi in this film is that he constructs a new lightsaber. And I don't know about you guys, but the first time he ignites that green lightsaber that looks like Obi-Wan's lightsaber, peak Star Wars moment. Love that shit.
Wait a minute. Obi-Wan's was green?
The design of the lightsaber is similar to Obi-Wan.
Oh, okay. Design, okay.
Like he's saying, oh, I don't want an Anakin type of lightsaber. I want a Ben lightsaber. And I don't know, I dig that. And the color green in lightsaber form just looks so cool. And
it's definitely the best color for sure in lightsaber lore, I guess. And yeah, that's my favorite lightsaber of all the 3 movies. I love that it kind of feels like it's a step up. Luke is confident as a Jedi, so he built his own, which I wish Lucas didn't really cut out in the movie when I saw the deleted scene where he's finishing building his lightsaber and he turns it on. I wish he would have kept that in the film because that was a great little small scene.
It's a great scene.
I'm sure it's an artistic choice that he had to make, and maybe he there's a reason behind it, but I'm not sure. But I thought they should have kept that. But definitely, green lightsaber for me was a step up to let the audience know that he's now a level up and he's ready to take on Vader and Palpatine head on without any semblance of doubt.
It's interesting too to watch that deleted scene and to see Luke assembling his lightsaber with what appears to be like a toolkit you might get from IKEA. And yeah. I guess like now in the actual canon, when you see lightsabers constructed, I believe in like Rebels and Clone Wars, they use the Force to put the pieces together. And I think they even did that in the Tartakovsky Clone Wars, which is just so cool when they like line everything up and then use the Force to put it together. But no, I do think it would have been a cool transition from the Vader scene in the opening to then lead to Luke finishing up his lightsaber before sending the droids off. But ultimately, it's not really needed. And it's kind of cool. Like I was saying before, I like the idea that first we get the droids, then we get Chewie, then we get Leia and Han, then Luke finally comes in. You see Lando off in the corner, and all the pieces are kind of coming together. Do you guys have anything else to talk about with Jabba's palace?
He just had a justified death that I liked.
He sure did. Let's put a pin in that one. Because I definitely want to bring that one up later. Okay, so after we leave Tatooine, we are introduced to the Emperor in this amazing sequence where he arrives and all the troops and the royal guards are all set up in that hangar area, and we finally get to meet the big bad of the series. And this is, I think, one of the things that pays off the most in all of Star Wars is when we finally meet Palpatine. And especially when you have a great actor like Ian McDiarmid playing him, who then will go on and portray him in the prequels and unfortunately in Rise of Skywalker, but he's great. I love him as an actor. I love what he brings to the role. I when I was looking in some of the behind the scenes stuff, apparently the initial idea was that they were going to dub him, that he was just going to be there on set playing the part, and then they were going to bring in somebody else with more, like, I guess, gravitas to their voice to kind of do like a James Earl Jones type thing. And I guess when they heard the voice that he was able to come up with, they're like, "Oh my God, that's amazing. We're keeping this." And I'm so glad that they did, because it just defines that character for me. How about you guys? Like, you guys have mixed feelings about Palpatine? I hope not.
No, I love to hate this character. You know, you hate him throughout the movie because of his cockiness and the way he presents himself and creepy. But at the same time, once again, you know, when you can't help but kind of give a little bit of respect for how dedicated he is to his craft, which is the dark side, and how completely sold in, like all in he is with his dark side powers and his Sith powers and whatnot, and running an empire. You know, and running an empire the way he knows how, with an iron fist and with fear, which is what most empires, especially despotic empires like the one in Star Wars, run. They run on fear because that's the only way they can keep their power. So, I had no problems with Palpatine at all. I thought it was a great, I guess, antithesis to Luke Skywalker's journey, and they're eventually going to meet and clash and have a battle of wills, which we get to see later in the movie, which is a great sequence. But we'll talk about that when we get there.
Joseph, tell me about Palpatine. What do you think of old Sheev?
Great first name for that guy. I love that his voice is just it's like a personification of just like some kind of guttural, just evil indigestion problem or something. You know, just all of his utterances are just these like coughs coming up from the deepest parts of his diseased gut. You know, and he loves it. He revels in it. He's just like, yeah, I'm gonna just have like my velvet suit or whatever. I'm just gonna be this evil guy in loungewear.
So one of the things that's really cool about this film with Palpatine is that he's also kind of dished out in piecemeal. I think, kind of like Heath Ledger's the Joker, and in Dark Knight, you get only, bits of him at a time, but he just owns the screen when he's on it. You think he's in a lot more of the movie than he really is. And I like how you get this opening scene of Palpatine, but it's going to be a while before he's going to do anything of note. And when he does, like you said, and you get that clash, it's totally worth it. The buildup was perfect. But right after we're introduced to Vader's mentor, Luke goes back to see his mentor in Yoda, goes back to Dagobah. I have a question for you guys. What if Luke had waited a day or two to go see Yoda?
We would have found him dead.
What do you know?
Oh, actually, he would have found him gone.
He would have been like, is this guy just out and about? What's going on here? Yeah.
Yeah, I thought there was a really amazing, it was like a weird time distillation thing going on in that scene where, like, at the beginning, you're like, oh, wow, like he's seeing his old friend again. And he mentions, soon I will forever sleep. But, like, he meant, like, 2 minutes from now, I will forever sleep. And it's like somehow they managed to pack this whole like reunion and death arc into this very short scene. It's pretty effective.
Not only that, but just a huge exposition dump.
Oh yeah.
Of like, okay, before I die, I just want to clear this up. Yeah, Vader's your father. There's another Skywalker. Don't follow the dark side. You're gonna have to kill Vader and the Emperor to be a real Jedi. All right, I'm gonna die now.
Yeah, and talking about mentioning earlier, like our maybe our criticisms of this film, like, I mean, there's just like a lot of exposition, and it weighs on the tone of this film for sure.
It's kind of that thing where to disrupt the status quo as much as Empire did, Jedi had to kind of come back and do the work to like fill in all the blanks to make sure that, we were sent off with a satisfying film, which I think is going to be a huge problem with a lot of Star Wars movies going forward. Is trying to take what was done to maybe challenge the franchise in a previous film and then try to bring things back to the status quo in ways that are kind of contrived, unconvincing, and unsatisfying. But we'll definitely get there.
Yeah.
So Yoda dies, but not before letting Luke know that there is another Skywalker, and that other Skywalker is Leia. And this is the one thing for me that I can't any way that I try to spin this, I think it's actually a really shitty idea. And it's one of those things you get away with as a kid. You're like, wow, the whole time. But then you realize, like, no, literally, probably on set, they're like, oh, wait, this will solve a lot of problems if she's just the sister. And it really feels that way. It's some really terrible plotting and character, in my opinion. But it does ultimately work. And I mean, I'm fine with it. But it is funny when you really think about it, especially considering that kiss they give each other in the previous film. It's like, this was never the intention, you know. It's very obvious.
It does kind of bug me because there's this this thing that's kind of related to like Roger Ebert's like law of conservation of characters, where, like, you know, if you hear, like, if they're like in a movie somebody mentions some character who hasn't appeared, but like it's gonna be someone that we saw early in the first act or something like that, like it, you know. And there is also this tendency, like, where once a movie or film universe starts like growing, they have to kind of like connect all the dots, which is like very much in play in Star Wars. And I think like a good example outside of Star Wars is what's happening with Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, where it's like, okay, in Breaking Bad, these were just like random one-off characters, but in Better Call Saul, it's like any time you can make a connection back to the original, you have to. There's like only one drug dealer in all of Albuquerque. Like, it has to be the same guy. There's only one vacuum salesman, you know, like, it's just
right.
It starts to make the universe feel kind of smaller. And I think that was kind of the dynamic going on with Leia, where in Empire, they want to just leave it open and be like, okay, there could be another Hope. And then in Return of the Jedi, like, and we're out of time, so it's Leia.
Yeah.
We had some big, great ideas, but it turns out they were too complicated. So yeah, Leia's the one. You know what? I think the other thing about it that maybe rubs me the wrong way is that if Leia had more to do in this film than hang out with Wicket, it would have been cool to see her, you know, become a Skywalker, but she really doesn't have anything to do in this movie. And I think that's the biggest tragedy of it. It's just like, okay, yeah, that other Skywalker is actually Leia, and also we're going to put her in a slave bikini and have her hang out with Ewoks, and that's all she's going to do.
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys. It was cheap. It was, you know, hey, let's just get this over with. We only have one movie left. I'm pretty sure Lucas was kind of burnt out on Star Wars at this point. Maybe he wanted to move on, didn't want to explore it any further. And it still worked out because, yeah, like you said, there's like Joseph mentioned, the Ebert's law of what was it? Character conservation? Is that what you call it? What do you call
law
it?
of conservation of characters.
Law of conservation of characters. And I can understand from a writer's point of view why that's necessary, because when you put yourself in a box and you share that box with the audience, you can't go outside that box. You got to stay within that box in order for them to plausibly believe it when you introduce it to them. So it made sense that they chose Leia, because Leia is a big part of this story of the Skywalker saga. She was the reason why Luke, you know, left. Not the main reason, but she's the reason why he had to go and save her, and then eventually lead on to become a Jedi. The incestuous, you know, nature of the relationship they had, you know, it was kind of like, oh, what? Okay, I understand, I get it. Without giving off too much information about my life, I was kind of in the same boat where my dad told me, hey, you got to be careful who you date because she could be your sister, because I was, you know, being raised by another family. My biological mom had left, so she went off and did her thing. I had no connection with her until I was maybe 23, 24. So that whole 20 years of not knowing anything about her or that side. So my dad did warn me, be careful, because just letting you know, you could be potentially dating your sister. So just be careful. So I guess part of me was like, okay, I could get this because they didn't know. You know, they didn't know. You can't really blame them, right? And then once you know, then that's when you're like, okay, let's, whoa, we made a mistake. Let's just not pretend it happened. Let's just move on and just go forward. And I think within the confines of the box, it works in hindsight, in 2020 vision.
Yeah, and also though, you just made me think when you're talking about your own personal story that so I guess in the Star Wars galaxy they don't have 23andMe.
No, they don't. Apparently not.
Luke didn't pull his iPhone out and say, "Wait, before we kiss." Going from that revelation to Luke showing back up with the rebels, and it is fun to see our three friends like rejoin after they split off an empire to go on a mission together, even if it's going to be short lived. But this is where I kind of feel like Return of the Jedi runs into some plotting problems. And I think once they land in Northern California and they're, walking through the forests, that's where I do think that the film gets a little muddled, and I start to lose my interest in it at that moment.
Really?
And like, we'll talk when we talk about our categories about our favorite stuff. I have some thoughts about the speeder bikes, but I'm not a huge fan of that speeder bike chase. For I think maybe the way it's shot with some very like obvious green screen, and they're moving but like their clothes aren't. I don't know, it's just one of those weird things where it just feels very very green screen. I don't want us to spend too much time on talking about Endor and kind of the lead up to Luke going to Vader, because it seems really uninteresting. Like I was going to mention earlier, I feel like Han Solo kind of lost his balls when he was frozen in carbonite. He comes back and he's just not the same anymore. He's stepping on twigs and alerting everyone to their presence like an idiot. I don't know what's going on there, but
I actually was wondering if that was on purpose to kind of elevate Luke's status, because I mean, just everything about Han in this episode is like he's introduced shuddering and just basically like weak and feeble and blinded. And then he's stepping on twigs. He's not even piloting the Millennium Falcon. I mean, he's a big softy in this episode.
Yeah, he even says to Leia, like, "Oh, you and Luke? Well, fine. I'll just stay out of the way then." Like, what happened to this guy? The greatest alpha in all of Star Wars is suddenly just like spends a year in carbonite and it's over for him.
Maybe carbonite does have long-term effects.
Maybe it does.
Maybe it does. It gives you like it kind of takes off you loses your step. You lose a step when you come out of carbonite, because apparently it was like don't they explain in the movie that it was risky to get him out of carbonite, right? So possibly that could be what happened.
It'll explain his questionable parenting skills later on, but that's for another episode.
That's another episode for sure.
So the one thing I do love in this section of the film is I love C-3PO, who says in A New Hope that he's not very good at telling stories, is just suddenly been given god level status, and he thinks he's capable of levitating, I guess, now. So I guess he thinks he's a great storyteller, and he tells the Ewoks the story of the original trilogy. And I ever since I was a kid, I've always loved that scene. It's always felt like a great I don't know. There's something nostalgic about it. Like you're hearing all of the things that happen. You're hearing sound effects. It's a very effective scene that I feel like people don't refer or talk about as much, but it's a great sequence. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I dig it.
I think it's cool that they took a moment in the film to kind of memorialize the exploits of the rebels in the core trilogy, and to like show characters in universe reacting to it and being like impressed by it. And it kind of reminded me of the end of The Last Jedi, where the mythos of the rebels themselves inside the universe has power, and it has the ability to influence people.
That's a great observation. Yeah, there is a parallel there.
Yeah, and that's essentially what happens in most rebellions. The legends grow from there. The heroes of the rebellions of old were like, oh, this character, like for instance, who was the George Washingtons, the who was another Simon Bolivar from South America. These characters essentially now of legends of how they led this rebellion to take out the old, despotic empires that were oppressing peoples at the time. So yeah, it fit nicely. It's a great scene. You're right, James. Very, very underrated scene. You're right. Not many people talk about that, and it's a great little encapsulating scene of how rebellions and wars get memorialized in tales, in folk tales and myths.
Yeah, and it's a good counterpoint to the emperor's impulse to intimidate,
Right.
and the opposite of that is hope. Right.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that it also kind of reminds me too that Lucas had mentioned back during, I think, the prequels, that his intention was with the Star Wars movies was that the droids are the ones kind of witnessing this all unfold and all of this happen. It's sort of from their perspective. It's a great little moment before, everything is going to kind of, hit the fan, and, we're going to get to the conclusion. And even though the scene is written in a really clumsy way, I do think that Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher do sell it when he reveals, who his father is, and that, hey, they're related. And I love, like, Leia just telling him, like, run away, just get out of this. Like, it's not worth it, and I love how conflicted he is. It's one of the things that I think this is the moment in the film, like right before he confronts Vader, where I think the theme of this movie, which I believe is redemption, it's the redemption of Anakin Skywalker, is where all of that kind of comes together. And it leads to a really satisfying conclusion. But yeah, you guys were talking about that scene between Vader and Luke. And I do love the idea of just having the two of them kind of just chilling out for a little while, talking about stuff, father and son, catching up, making up for lost time. They don't get a chance to play a baseball game or anything like that, but they get to admire each other's lightsabers.
and without, and it's safe to say that without the Emperor's, I guess, sensing that, because remember that scene where he's like, "Oh, I've sensed them." He's like, "Oh, really? Odd that I haven't sensed them. Are you sure you're playing for the right team, boy? What's going on there with that inside there in your head or in your heart, whatever." And so, yeah, it was a great scene and much needed, because I think audiences at that point wanted to see that, them confronting that truth, which is their father and son. And it was a cool little moment before the big stuff happened.
Yeah, and you just also made me realize too that, God, this guy traded being married to Natalie Portman and hanging out with Ewan McGregor to be under the thumb of this decrepit old man who's going to question everything he does for 20 years. You're always going to be a step underneath me. Like, you might be the guy, the general, but I'm the emperor. So, hey, sorry, you always answer to me. Sucks for Vader.
Yeah, the dynamic of their relationship is like really evil, and it's been fleshed out with Disney in the comics somewhat, and very interesting to see like how the beginning of that like Emperor Vader relationship like took place in the comics, at least.
Right. So when Luke finally confronts the Emperor, when he makes it to the throne room, and we kind of begin this exchange between the two of them where they're going to kind of toy with each other, I'm just going to say it right now, and this is going to kind of spoil future episodes. This is my favorite thing in all of Star Wars. This whole sequence in the throne room, to me, is it like you boil Star Wars down to its very essence, and it really is this. It's three guys in a room, and just some conflict. And yeah, you've got, big space battle, you've got this ground assault, you've got all this stuff going on, but it really does hinge on the outcome of the conflict happening just between three characters. And to me, it couldn't be better. It's the reason why this film, I no matter how much you nitpick this movie, I'm always going to love it no matter what, because it contains these scenes. And it's from the get-go, when they start to talk and they're toying with each other, it's just great stuff.
Yeah, man, Battle of Wits. If done right and written right, the Battle of Wits scenes in any movie is great to watch. I can't really think off the top of my head of other scenes that kind of similar. This one does capture, like you said, the essence of Star Wars. It really does boil down to the Force, right? Like, who can wield the Force, this unseen power, and use it for good, to use it for evil. And here is the clash that I think Star Wars fans at the time were waiting for. They got it with a glimpse of it with Vader and Luke, but now you're getting it with the Master and the new Jedi Master, which is Luke Skywalker. Now they're having a battle of wits to see who could, who's going to win that chess game that they're playing, that mental chess game where they're doing move, counter move, and counter move, and finding out, is Luke going to give in? Does he really want to join his father and run the Empire, or is he going to just stick with his friends, and like Joseph mentioned, hope and be hope, the sign, the symbol of hope for the rest of the universe and the galaxy. So yeah, I dug this. You're right. It's one of my favorites as well. When I was watching last night, I was still glued to my TV again, yet again. I feel like maybe I want to say my 12th time watching Return of the Jedi, and that scene always sucks me in because of how well done it's written, directed, and acted too. All the actors involved were great in that scene.
Really quickly, you've only seen Return of the Jedi 12 times. Those are rookie numbers, son.
Hey, I'm the type of person who kind of lives by Plato's, everything in moderation code. So I don't want to overdo it. Like I've listened to Star Wars to Heaven so many times now, I can't listen to it anymore. It's boring to me now. There's no heft to the song anymore like before when I first heard it. So I got to keep it. All right, every once in a while I'll watch it just so I won't burn myself out.
I'm a little bit of a cautionary tale too when it comes to Star Wars obsession, because I've probably watched Return of the Jedi 12 times in the last few years. So I mean, I've seen this movie way too many times. But
you want to make an attempt on your total view count on that?
I think that when I was a kid, I was probably watching the original trilogy probably half dozen times a year at that point. And so then you calculate that over the course of my childhood into my teens, and then I kind of drifted away from Star Wars for a while. And now I probably watch the trilogy at least once a year. So I've probably seen the movie a couple dozen times at least. I'm thinking it's probably closer to 40 or 50. But yeah, that's so embarrassing. Let's move on.
That's not embarrassing. Hey, when the movie is good, it's worth watching again. That's just the way it goes. It's the name of the game.
Sure. It's just weird the amount of times I've hate watched these movies. Just like a really bad relationship, just so many times I watch Return of the Jedi, I'm like, yeah, this sucks, but I'm going to still watch it. Anyways, Joseph, what were your thoughts about this whole scene, this whole, throne room sequence?
Yeah, this is kind of a shining jewel of the overall arc or discussion of the Force itself and what it means to be a Force user in Star Wars. I think if this scene wasn't here, the emotional weight of all of the Jedi Sith things in all of Star Wars would have less weight to it. I hadn't seen Return of the Jedi in quite a while, so my memory was pretty hazy, and I was impressed watching it again recently that the writing concerning like the confrontation between Luke, Vader, and the Emperor from beginning to end, it was all telegraphing about that it wasn't just about like winning a lightsaber fight. This was about whether, good triumphs over evil just generally, and like, what is the nature of the Force? Like, can something be so decrepit and evil to just dominate through Force alone? Or does, like, even after all the darkness of Vader and the Emperor, is redemption possible? And of course, Return of the Jedi says yes, it is.
Yeah, it comes pretty firmly down on the idea that it is, that you can basically murder countless millions of people, but as long as on your deathbed you say, you know what, I like being Anakin a little bit more, you get to not only come back as a Force ghost, you get to come back as Hayden Christensen as a Force ghost, which is, hey, I don't know. Seems like a little bit of a loophole myself, but so, before we move on from the film, I have a couple of thoughts about the ending, which I said before, strikes me as, you're kind of, put a bow on it. This is your happy ending. Nothing to worry about. All the friends got what they wanted. The Emperor's destroyed. Wisa free. They knocked down the big statue on Coruscant. Everything is A-okay for these guys. I do think, though, that the older I get, the more I rewatch this movie, and just completely divorcing it from what happens in the sequels and later on in Legends or canon or whatever, I find the ending to be kind of bittersweet. And I think it's because now Luke and Leia have to deal with the weight of what they've lost and the revelations they've found out, that this evil runs in their family, that maybe they're even capable of it. And it's something that always kind of hits me now when I watch the movie, that I get really emotional watching this film far more than watching A New Hope or The Empire Strikes Back. And I think it's for that reason. It's this redemption that feels like, you know, for Anakin and just sort of his legacy, like it doesn't take away from the fact that, you know, he messed up. He messed up in his life, you know, and he gets to come back from that, but it seems more like that is completing the arc of Luke Skywalker in this trilogy. Like he succeeded in doing what he never thought or anybody thought was possible, which was bringing his mechanical father back from the dark side and making him no longer the henchman of this decrepit old man, but actually, you know, bringing balance back to the Force, like, you know, was prophesized. And I don't know, like it does strike me at the end that even though you get the fun little Ewok celebration, that you see the weight of it on Luke's shoulders. You know, when he looks off and he sees the ghosts in the background and he rejoins the party, it's like you kind of imagine, what does Luke do after this? Like he doesn't just celebrate for the next year. He probably hops in his X-wing and just needs to fly around for a while, guys. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean he's graduated to elder statesman at this point, like in the hero's journey progression. Yeah. I mean, at the beginning, you know, you're innocent and you're naive. Then you get the call to adventure, and you know that's actually like explicitly part of Luke's arc, is like rejecting the excitement of the adventure and reaching a more mature stage where it's more about like what are the needs of like the community as a whole, and like being a, you know, a kind of like a fully grown man in that situation. And so like, yeah, you know, he has like a lot of like, as the heroes of the rebellion, like the struggles of the New Republic are directly on their shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll learn more about what happens to these characters from, you know, the Disney angle as things go on. But before we ever got in episode 7, and maybe even when we got episode 7 and we had that mystery about where's Luke Skywalker, the Luke Skywalker that we see at the end of The Force Awakens feels like the Luke Skywalker, the logical progression from Return of the Jedi, in that this is a guy that's seen some shit and maybe just never got over it. You know, probably never held down a good relationship, never probably really had kids or anything like that, because yeah, like once you join the rebellion and you think, you know, hey, we're going to save the galaxy. And then you find out that your dad is the one that has like been assisting in bringing so much of this evil and conflict. You're like, shit, I feel like I got some blood on my hands a little bit, you know? And I don't know. I do think that it's there on his face at the end of the film. And it, as much as we get the happy ending that we want, and maybe that some fans wish were a little bit more challenging, I do think it's there. I do think there's a bittersweet, when, especially when he's burning him at the on the funeral pyre. It's just a really great moment where you don't get the sense that like, oh, they've gained a whole lot in this victory. It's more like, what have we lost in this battle? And then yeah, we get that montage that Lucas decided to shove into the special editions, where we get a bunch of clips of the different planets celebrating, which I think
I didn't mind that. I didn't mind that personally.
I don't mind it necessarily, and it's actually effective in the filmmaking. But if all these people are getting out of their house to go celebrate, why didn't any of them get out of their house to help? Like, right. You know, you look at the rebellion and they're like, look like they are really struggling to find people to join this fight. But the minute the Empire is destroyed, they're all coming out like, oh, yay, great, we get to celebrate now. Like, I don't know. I think these people are a bunch of fair weather citizens, I guess. Before we get into the categories, let's move on a little bit to some of the making of this movie, because I think some of it is a little fascinating. The making of this film contrasts a lot with the problems that Lucas ran into on Empire by giving control to a independently minded filmmaker, giving a screenwriter a lot of control over the story, and him kind of taking a backseat. It seems like with this film, from everything that I've heard, that he kind of hired a yes man with Richard Marquand, and just somebody who would do exactly what he told him to do and would take on, the tasks of being a director that Lucas hates doing, like directing actors. And from everything I've heard, this movie, Richard Marquand didn't really put much of a stamp on it. And it shows in the movie. Everything feels anonymously done in this film. Nothing seems to have, they haven't gone out of their way at all to try to challenge anything in the filmmaking. It's just very by the numbers and by the books. Are you guys familiar at all with who Lucas's original choices were for director?
Didn't he at one point wanted David Lynch to direct Return of the Jedi?
He approached David Lynch after his first choice was Steven Spielberg.
Okay, that makes sense.
We could be living in a world where Spielberg made Return of the Jedi, which I think would have been amazing.
Yeah, why did he turn that down?
It's because he was in the Directors Guild of America, and they wouldn't let him do it if his name wasn't in the beginning of the film in those opening credits.
Oh, right.
So that limited who Lucas could hire to be director. So after he couldn't have Spielberg, I guess he approached David Lynch and I think David Cronenberg. And I don't know. You look at the filmographies of those filmmakers, and that's a different Return of the Jedi.
Imagine the Sarlacc.
Would have been even more vaginal.
Yeah.
I can just imagine there's a scene where maybe Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker has a dream. They're talking in tongues and backwards and whatnot, dancing, snapping their fingers.
Would have been amazing.
Like Lynch is not that far off, but I think we're so used to seeing him in such a distinct style that it's hard to imagine in retrospect.
Yeah, that would have been very interesting if actually David Lynch was like, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's pretty sad because I don't really know anything about Richard Marquand at all. I'm not really familiar with anything he did.
Same here.
And apparently he died only a few years after this, and he died really young, and so he couldn't really participate in any of the supplemental materials on the couldn't be around to sign off on the special editions. Not that Lucas would care, but it's interesting. It's very sad. So. Everyone knows that the working title of this film was Revenge of the Jedi, which is not the right title at all for this movie. And I can't even imagine they were even entertaining it at all to make the title of this film Revenge of the Jedi. But okay, so I got kind of a hot take here. I think Return of the Jedi is actually one of the best Star Wars titles of all time because it means a lot of different things. And that's one of the things I really love about it is, obviously when I was a kid, I was like, oh yeah, it means Luke's back. It's Return of the Jedi. He's the Jedi. And then I thought, wait a minute, maybe it's Anakin. And then maybe it's plural. Maybe it's Return of the Jedi. And I love the parallel to Revenge of the Sith and how the two of them kind of, correspond in that way. But I don't know. What do you guys think about the title of this movie? And would you have preferred Revenge of the Jedi?
Nah, Return of the Jedi all the way for me. Like you said, you hit it right in the head, James. That's perfect. I got nothing to add to that other than I totally agree with what you just said. It has multiple meanings. Yeah, you're right. It's a perfect title. There is no need to change it. Thank God he went with Return of the Jedi and not Revenge of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Because Return just sounds so much more satisfying. Like there's a return to hope, in other words.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah, all the Return of the Jedi for me, all the way.
Yeah, and it fits into the Flash Gordon serialized episode kind of theming.
Yeah.
Up next, Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
See, and that's something that he would have, I think, a hard time with the prequels is coming up with something that was like pulpy, like Attack of the Clones, but also have it have like a deeper meaning, which it doesn't. But it sure does here. So I don't know. Do you guys have anything else you wanted to bring up about the filmmaking behind the scenes?
Other than special effects were great. The starfight in the end, towards the end, was fantastic. Was great. Was greatly shot. I was still at the edge of my seat, even watching it again for the 12th time. I was still mesmerized by it, just how well done it was. And Neum Num, my guy.
Love that guy. So great.
Love that guy. And then of course, what was his name? Oh gosh, I can't even remember his name. It's a trap.
Oh, Akbar. Legend.
Akbar, thank you. Yeah, legend, another legend. The whole star fight sequence and kudos to ILM for giving it their all every time they're tasked with making a special effects scene in the movie.
Yeah, especially the creature and animatronic work in the Jabba's palace stuff. Like, I think that all of the special effects in Return of the Jedi are kind of the culmination of 10 years of special effects innovations that started with the first film, but none of it feels like a breakthrough. It just feels like a perfecting of. You don't have like the introduction of a new technology like CGI like you will with the prequels, but I love all of those the makeup, character design and everything in that Jabba's palace. The production design is beautiful stuff, amazing stuff.
I wanted to mention the speeder chase had some pretty interesting sound design, and having watched George Lucas's filmography starting with THX. Listeners might not be familiar with those episodes unless they sign up for our VIP Patreon, right?
There you go. There you go. Now we're talking,
but
Joseph.
The lost episodes. But
not only did you guys hear it here first, I heard it here first.
But that speeder chase, I've been marveling at every ship design, every vehicle design in Star Wars tracks a direct line from THX through American Graffiti, and then throughout the Star Wars saga. And the sound design of that speeder chase was also very interesting, and I felt was, again, a direct line from the sound design in THX.
That's a great point you bring up, because I also noticed that, you know what, man, George Lucas is a speed nut. Like, he probably was, when in his youth, before he went to USC, he was in those hot rod cars and just going 70 miles per hour down that long hot stretch of highway and just going for it, you know. And so it really does show in this film that he really does love things fast and furious. And if only the technology was up to date with that speeder scene in Endor, because that scene would have been fantastic if it was, you know, done properly, I guess, and maybe a few years down the line when CGI was introduced, because that scene has so much potential, but it fell short. It's aged terribly. You watch it now, you're like, ooh, that looks really bad. Like, that's look at all the ideas there.
Right.
It's there, but the technology is not there yet. So it's a shame that didn't happen, because that would have been a great scene. It probably would have been one of the most memorable scenes in Star Wars if it had just, the CGI was just caught up.
Yeah. And it leads me to wonder, bringing that up, I'm not really sure exactly how, like compositing works with, CGI, if he had decided to try to do something with that in the special editions. But I wonder why he didn't, because there's a lot of things in those special editions that we did not need added at all. But why couldn't he have done a quick polish on that? At least like try to make it a little bit more seamless that they really are riding speeder bikes and not on a soundstage.
Yeah, that's a good question.
From my understanding about the way that was shot, it was done using like fast motion photography, shooting at like, I think 1 frame a second. And I think that was a mistake. I think they should have actually not sped up the film that much. It might have been a little bit more believable, because the way the speeder is moving and the way it's coming behind them, it looks like some of the really bad, like, rear projection you see in old movies when they're driving in a car and they're just obviously not doing anything, but all this shit's going on behind them. Yeah, it's very, very weird. So before we move on, I do want to give a little bit of a shout out to John Williams. I think that his work on the original trilogy is fantastic and iconic across the board. And this score, it's not as good, I think, as Empire, but it's still great. He's playing all the hits, and he introduces a couple of new things that I really love. There's the Emperor's theme, I think, is fantastic, and he's going to use it a lot in the prequels for Sidious. And there's also a theme for Luke and Leia that I love. Like, whenever that comes up on my shuffle, it's one of my jams. I love the Luke and Leia theme. If you guys are familiar with that one.
Oh yeah.
And also the Ewoks get a theme, which is, goofy and fun.
Yub.
and isn't it funny how there's I don't know if you guys noticed it, but it sounds like he's saying "Yo, mama" at one point. I guess I don't know if you guys ever caught that or not. I caught that last night when I was watching it, where he was eating the cookie, and I think the blaster hit him, and he fell over, and he was like, "Oh, yo, mama."
As we know from the beginning of Last Jedi, your mom jokes are very much Star Wars. It's
good point.
And another tidbit of when I was watching it last night, my wife was watching it with me, and she was watching the scene with when they're trying to get back into the main room that controls the beam of the Death Star, and Han Solo's trying to open it, he's trying to hardwire it, and then Leia gets shot in the arm and she falls back. So my wife actually caught it, and she was like, "Hey, did he couple feel?" And so I rewinded the scene, and I looked at it and said, "Holy crap, he did couple feel." He pushed her back into, from safety, and then moved his hand slightly on the shoulder. And I was like, "Wow, great catch." I didn't even catch that. But yeah, Han Solo copped the feel.
Yeah. So what base is that you got?
I mean, in Star Wars, that's a home run. No, it's so funny that you bring that up because I remember like rewinding that over and over when I was a kid and thinking it was so funny, and then I just forgot about it. Like I guess I'm not paying attention as much as I used to. But yeah, when I was watching it over and over.
Yeah, I didn't catch it at all until she mentioned it. I was like, what? And I rewind the scene. I was like, whoa, he did.
Sure enough.
Wow. Han Solo, still that, slick Willie.
I guess you're locked in carbonite for a year. You're just like, I know now's not the time, but I don't know if I'm going to get another chance. Okay, guys, let's move on to awards and demerits. Best ship or vehicle, Joseph.
Forest speeders. Like I said, I loved the sound design. I love that it was a continuation of just every car vehicle chase in the Lucas filmography. It didn't quite come together, but I did love the scenes where you're looking ahead from the POV of the person on the speeder, and it's sped up, and it gives it a lot of excitement.
They're also so cool the way they're designed. They look so neat.
Yeah.
I just with the little like thing in the front and just the way it, with the little blaster in the front and everything. They're great looking. Did you get the same thing, Julius?
Yeah, I got the same thing.
Yeah, me too.
I actually looked at the name for it. They're called 74Z speeder bikes.
Wow. Okay. Very cool.
So that's what they're called. And I the same reason as the speeder in New Hope. I want one.
Yeah.
I hope they invent one and I could ride one day. They look awesome to ride.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of the best parts. I just wish, like I said earlier, the CGI was up to date or further down the line, so that way we could have gotten a better speeder bike scene in Jedi.
I've always been just petrified of the idea of driving a motorcycle, and yet for some reason I look at these speeder bikes and I'm like, yeah, I want one, even though I can't understand why the Empire would invest so much in having these high-speed bikes where there's a bunch of trees. It just seems like a disaster waiting to happen, and surely enough it does. Yeah, very, very weird. Okay, best weapon, gadget, or tech. I kind of cheated on this one, but Julius, tell me what you got.
Ewok sticks and stones.
They defeated an Empire, so hey, really is the best weapon, yeah?
It was just one of those things where I was watching it again, I was like, wow, I can't believe literal sticks and stones are knocking down these stormtroopers and actually killing them. And I felt bad for that one Ewok who was spinning that one rock and he ended up hitting his own face. And I was like, oh, that Ewok is dead. He's dead.
Yeah.
Because those rocks are literally killing everyone else.
Yeah, because if that had hit like 4 stormtroopers, they'd all be executed.
They'd all be dead, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So, oh man, I don't know if like it's maybe Endor is a force sensitive planet. Maybe those sticks and stones have like force power behind them. Maybe that would have been kind of cool if they explained that, but it's not. So I just put down Ewok sticks and stones. I was just so impressed at how it took down an imperialistic powerhouse that is the Empire.
A legion of his best troops.
Exactly. His elite soldiers.
Just goes to show that means nothing in the Empire. Yeah, they're my best guys. They also still suck.
Yeah. That was my pick.
What'd you get, Joseph?
I kind of felt like there weren't that many choices in this film, but
there weren't.
I really liked the look and the voice of Bush's helmet, which Leia is wearing to disguise herself.
That's cool.
When she comes
Yeah.
into
That is cool.
Jabba's palace. And like all Star Wars, of course, there's like a full backstory of the actual character who that was.
Yeah.
But it's just it's such a different persona than the actual person Leia is underneath. It was very effective.
So this can be a weapon, and I do believe it's used as such in the film, which is why I picked it. It's not really gadget or tech, but it's the Rancor. I think having a Rancor, just, for all your enemies and all the people you don't like, and especially to have the trap door would really come in handy in a lot of situations. Maybe in the workplace, if you're mad at somebody, just gone.
Yeah, like Jabba's got like a whole routine. He's like, don't worry, I know what to do with this guy.
Yeah.
Just going into the world building of Jabba's palace, which I think over the years has just kind of blown me away more and more, and how it expands the universe and everything. I love the bit at the end with the Rancor trainer who's crying, and it's like, yeah, you're thinking, what goes into Rancor maintenance? Like, how big are the shits of a Rancor, and how many times per day? And no, there's a guy that's training him and everything, and it's like, wow, okay, cool. Like this is a real functioning little, society that is Jabba's palace. And yeah, so that's why I picked the Rancor.
Good choice.
So moving on to best droid, I'll give you guys mine to start off with. I really love EV-99, the managing droid at Jabba's palace, who assigns different roles and also tortures the other droids. It's just a really good manager. Really keeps the staff in line in Jabba's palace. So yeah, I dig that guy. He's really into his job. I like him. What'd you get, Joseph?
Well, in that scene, there was this moment where, he's scaring 3PO, saying like, Jabba disintegrated the last interpreter droid, and then they cut to the droid, and he's like sparking and falling apart. It was like a Simpsons gag or something.
No, that's true. It always confused me too, because I was like, wait, did he say that they disintegrated the last droid and then they cut to just another droid that's being disintegrated? Like they do this all the time, or is that the actual droid? And they're just like, wow, that's how quickly we hire and fire here. Like we're bringing in the new one while we're disintegrating the last one. So just a ruthless place. Julius, what'd you get?
C-3PO. That was my choice, because I felt that he was a little bit more brave in this one. He's hiding in the back, in the background when they go in, but then they get, the rebels get captured, and then he uses himself as bait to lure some stormtroopers out where he's at. And
that's right.
What led to the ambush of the Ewoks.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, that's kind of out of character, but in a way, it's a growth of character, because the first two, he's very this stumbling idiot character, but in this one, he actually steps up to the plate and helps the Empire, which was a nice little addition, a wrinkle to his character in the trilogy.
I'm glad that you brought him up, and especially in this film, because, I think among all the characters in Star Wars, if they ever thought for a minute that they were actually a god, it would really go to their head. But for him, he actually decided he was going to join the fight in a way that he hadn't before. And it does say a lot about his character. So yeah, I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah. Can you believe it? An actual golden idol.
A real golden idol. Yeah.
Actually helped out. It's his worshiper is worshiping, idol worshipers. So kudos to 3PO for that.
Which is also, we really glossed over that whole sequence, but I love that whole bit when he pops up and the Ewoks start bowing to him. It's always been one of those things that I've always thought is so great in this movie.
Agreed.
Okay, best alien or creature, Julius.
Oh, Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because nasty, ugly looking. I just wish he was a little bit more slimier, personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know how when he pulls Leia close to him and he kind of lands on them? I kind of wish they would have, she would have got her hands on it. It would have been slimy, that kind of deal. But I understand why he did it, but I just wish that was they added that little extra element of factor to it.
Yeah.
But he's one of my favorite Star Wars alien or creatures, because the way he looked, it just, like I said earlier, encapsulates that mob boss, Tony Soprano-esque big, overweight guy who just takes everything for himself, selfish, self-centered. Everything revolves around him. So great design by Lucas and team.
Joseph, did you get Jabba as well, or Hutt's? There's a lot of character designs to choose from in this film, but I just kind of thought that the those pig-snouted Gamorrean guards from Jabba's
really cool.
were a really nice, self-contained character design.
They are really cool looking. I think I even bought action figures of them when I was a kid, and I had a Jabba as well. I really, as a kid, it just, really kind of makes your imagination run wild, Jabba's palace. And I definitely picked Hutt's. I picked Jabba, love that character design. I also love Nien Nunb, who's a Celestin alien, and Admiral Akbar, who's a Mon Calamarian character. They're pretty cool. They're, like you said, there's a lot of cool creature work in this movie. So
yeah, shout out to Salacious Crumb.
Yeah,
that's not getting cut. Yeah, he's great. There's an episode, I think it might be the first episode of Mandalorian, where you see one of them on a stick being cooked and
Oh, that's
sold
right.
by a
Yeah.
vendor, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty much all they're worth. Okay, best location or planet. I'm gonna go. I picked Jabba's palace. It has to be. Love the throne room. A lot of great locations in this movie, but Jabba's palace is amazing.
I picked the same thing. Yeah. I mean, other than Endor was kind of cool looking, but Jabba's palace was just something to behold. It was like, wow, talk about a grimy. Yeah, a slug would live there.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
a giant slug like Jabba would live in a place like that.
No
And,
natural
you know,
lighting
like,
at all or windows. Just yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Underground in the cave, which where slugs typically do live in. So yeah, it was great all around. So yeah, Jabba's palace was definitely on my list as well.
What'd you get, Joseph?
Yeah, I didn't pick Jabba's palace, but I just wanted to say that it gives me the vibe of kind of like that like college party house.
Yeah.
Of just like like waking up the next afternoon, everybody's still passed out. There's just like various intoxicating substances everywhere. But I actually picked the Emperor's throne room, and I was just thinking about it in terms of like a lot of images from the original trilogy really like were like if you ever hung out in an arcade in the late 80s or early 90s, you were seeing like clips or stills from Return of the Jedi, from Empire, from A New Hope. The image of the lightsaber blades striking in front of the Emperor's face had to be seen just like millions of times throughout the 80s and 90s. It was very much a part of like the children's pop culture of the time that I grew up in. It's very nostalgic.
Yeah, that was like my honorable mention choice because they're both iconic. Most satisfying kill or death, Joseph?
When Jabba's sail barge blows up, that's a real satisfying
it is.
Like everything kind of leads up to that. It's like swashbuckling in a way that the later part of the film is not, and it's just a fun time.
So that's like the death of Jabba's sort of like legacy is what you're saying. Like when it all comes crashing down, it's not like one specific death. It's just the death of something that's big on Tatooine.
Yeah, and Luke, he kept his promise. He's like, "Are you sure, man? Because I'm giving you the last chance.
Yeah,
just give him up, and I'll leave you alone." But oh, all right, well, I'm going to kill you, and he did. He freaking killed Jabba the Hutt.
It's interesting to think that we went from Jabba like officiating the pod race that his father was in to his son finally being the death of him.
Yeah, that's interesting arc to his character over the course of the whole Skywalker saga. Yeah, he shouldn't have underestimated Luke. That was literally the biggest mistake of his life, as Luke said.
Yeah, everything was smooth sailing for this guy.
He could have doubled his size if he'd just given in. But what'd you get, Julius?
Emperor Palpatine. You know, it was that scene, man, always gets me. You know, Father, please. You know, he's being killed with that Sith lightning, and you know, Vader kind of looking back and forth, and you're come on, man, do it, save him, and then you know, actually finally picking them up. I just don't like the fact that they added that no in the special edition. That was, I don't know why Lucas did that, but you know, the fact that he picked them up and he's actually being killed at the same time, the sacrifice, which is what brings it back to the light side, because in Christian lore and even in Islam, whenever you do sacrifice yourself for someone else, it's an automatic, according to their beliefs anyway, it's an automatic enter to heaven if you put your own life ahead of someone else's. And it was a great piece of cinema right there of Darth Vader being brought back but giving his own life to save his son, and which is kind of, I guess, automatically forgives all his past sins of being Darth Vader,
including getting old. Like they're like, hey, you get to go back being 20. Yeah. That's really cool. Not even Obi-Wan got that one.
Yeah, but I think Palpatine was the most satisfying death, especially when he exploded. Or what was that? Was that the generator of the ship exploding, or was that his body exploding because of so much dark energy force he had inside his old decrepit body?
Just all that dark side energy he'd been pent up for decades and decades just explode.
And I also love the chain reaction, how they kind of look like their spirits like leaving like his body. It was really cool.
It has the sound of like these like cries, these
Yeah.
deep cries, like
Mhm.
emerging and coming out.
Yeah, and the way it kind of sort of like X-ray lightning bolt thing when
yeah.
you see
Right.
on Vader's face
Yeah.
when he's just kind of leaning over. Yeah, it's great. And here's the thing, I love that scene and I love that death. It's very satisfying. For some reason, the one I picked was Jabba the Hutt, though, because I just love that it's the one thing that Leia gets to do, and
Yeah.
I love the way that she does it is very Godfather, and
Yeah.
I think it's a very satisfying death, even though I don't think that Jabba would let himself, have someone like a slave girl get the jump on him. I just love that she, takes control of the situation and chokes him out. And the way he dies and his tongue and everything is just like,
Yeah.
it's so great. I love it. It's gross. It's fun. It's awesome.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm gonna go first on best Force move with I think the obvious choice, Force lightning. I mean, do you guys remember the first time Palpatine just starts shooting electric bolts? Like, I didn't know anybody could do that. It made me want to join the dark side. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like, whoa, okay, this is why he's above Vader.
Right.
You know,
Shit
'cause he
got
could
real.
do that,
Yeah.
Yeah. He could definitely kill Vader if he wanted to with that Force lightning. So yeah, it was a nice surprise. Great choice.
I just love that whole idea too of like the Sith, being in this weird kind of open relationship type of thing, and like constantly looking for ways to replace each other. And so Palpatine's like, hey, you're my apprentice now, you're my right hand man, but I'm just never going to teach you how to do the Force lightning because I know you might use that against me, so I'm gonna hold that one back. Which
yeah,
what a shitty guy. Julius, what did you get?
I got the Force choke with the two Gamorrean guards from Luke Skywalker.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because, like I said, it was just such a gangster baller move by Luke. Here I can just imagine the audience sitting down watching Return of the Jedi for the first time, and they see the door open, the guys walking in. This must be Luke. This must be Luke, right? Wearing the cloak, and then the two Gamorrean, guards come up, and he just straight up just like, I don't got time for this. I got to get to work, and I love that. Even as a kid, I was like, that is such badass that we get to see Luke come back as like the confident Jedi that we were hoping to see anyway in Return of the Jedi, whereas in Empire, he's still unsure of himself, but he has to do what he has to do because he wants to save his friends. So he sacrifices his time with Yoda in order to save his friends in Cloud City. And he still faces, Vader head on. He loses his hand. He loses a part of himself in that battle, but he came back and he comes back as a boss, and I love that. I love that scene. Best Force move for me was that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Force moves like we were talking about earlier, just like within that scene, and he's just like playing the greatest hits just right off the bat. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty great. Joseph, what did you get?
I liked Luke lifting C-3PO up using the Force. Oh,
yeah. I'm so glad you brought that one up. Yeah,
like all of that with C-3PO being kind of like lauded by the Ewoks is like such a great reversal for his character, and then Luke, using the Force in this way that isn't like directly related to fighting, but is very much about like the way that the Jedi can kind of like play with. Like it reminds me of Obi-Wan being like, well, it was true from a certain point of view. It's like, they can get into a little subterfuge. They can kind of trick people a little bit.
I love that moment. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because it's also like kind of a Force move where you're like, oh, I forgot Jedi can kind of do that. And yeah, it's definitely a step up from like how much he struggled to just kind of like move his lightsaber out of some snow. So now he's, lifting 3PO and he's definitely progressed. Supporting character most deserving of their own spinoff. Joseph, what'd you get on that one?
Wedge Antilles.
Nice.
I think he's just this straight shooter in the background, and I don't know if you guys ever played Star Wars Rogue Squadron back in the day?
That's the only Star Wars game I didn't play.
I don't think I played it either for whatever reason, but yeah, I know it has a huge following, and Wedge is great. He's a great character.
He survived all 3 movies.
Yeah, not a lot of characters can say that. Julius, what'd you get?
Oddly enough, I picked the Emperor's guards, elite guards. I want to know more about them. I want to know how they get to that level? Like, what makes them so damn special to the point where even when Luke Skywalker shows up, he tells him, "Hey, leave us alone. Like, leave us be. Let us do our own thing, and I don't need you right now because he thinks he could take on Luke Skywalker by himself." So I think it'd be great to see like maybe a mini series where it kind of explains how they get to that level and why they get chosen to begin with. So yeah, I love their look. I love their costume design. Great. It's very elegant and intimidating at the same time, which is hard to pull off in a film like this. So yeah, I chose the Emperor's Guards.
I always thought those designs for the Royal Guards was so cool ever since the first moment I saw the movie, just how red they are and just the look of it as well. And yeah, after he tells them that to leave the room so that he can have alone time with Luke and Vader, what do you think they go do? Like they go play chess or something?
Maybe
They're like, oh, awesome, cool, we get a break, And
then of course when I guess they didn't hear Emperor Palpatine like cry for death, and they didn't come back in the room. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, they're geting on a speeder to get the hell out of there.
Yeah, like, this is like, bounce. Let's bounce, dude. Let's bounce. Let's go.
We always knew how this was going to end.
We're the Emperor's Guards, and there's no more Emperor to guard, so we better get the hell out of here. Yeah. I picked Jabba's palace, which I've kind of been going in this direction. I also want to know a little bit more about the Max Rebo band. They played famously the last show in Jabba's palace before Jabba died. It's got to build up their cred a little bit more. Also, they were there when like Han got rescued and Luke went on his way to go defeat the Empire. So I don't know. I feel like when it comes to different music festivals in the galaxy, they're headliners at that point. So I want to see a little bit more about what they did with that clout after all that shit went down.
They probably got a record deal in Coruscant.
I imagine Lando gets into being like a record producer. He's probably like, I want to sign the Max Rebo band. I heard them. They were playing while I was there in disguise. They're fucking great,
Maybe he founded Empire Records.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Best character overall, Julius.
Palpatine, man, for me. I just have a knack for characters who are all in what they do.
Yeah.
Joker in Dark Knight, Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs. The list goes on and on of cinematic villains that are all the way in. They don't budge. They want the same thing as the hero or the protagonist does in the film. It's just in the opposite direction. And I thought Emperor Palpatine was just in the short amount of time that he was in the movie, just powerful. Kind of like the same thing like Heath Ledger's Joker. It's still very powerful and you just can't wait for his smug look to just be struck down.
Yeah.
When he's like, "Oh, you want this, don't you?"
Yeah.
And he's like kind of like basking in you're like, "Oh,
yeah.
I can feel your hate. I can feel your anger. Come on, do it." That kind of deal.
Yeah.
And it's like, "Oh, I can't wait for you to go down."
He's really into it.
Yeah, a character I love to hate for sure.
What'd you get, Joseph?
This is the film of the fully armed and operational Luke Skywalker. He's a fully trained Jedi Knight. He's not a wide-eyed farm boy anymore, and this is the film that established him as the character that like a zillion boys played action figures of as kids, and I'm glad he got the chance to be in the Jabba's palace sequence, so we can just see him kind of swashbuckling around and taking advantage of that position he's in.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why I just really enjoyed talking so much shit about Luke in our A New Hope episode and Empire was because I knew he was going to come into his own in this film. And I knew he was going to be my pick before we watched the films because, this is the one where he becomes the Luke Skywalker of my childhood. He becomes the hero, the guy that is, this is my guy. This is top 5 characters in all of Star Wars. And Palpatine's a very close second because, maybe he'll win in a future episode. We'll see. But at least in this one, he came close. But to me, this is Luke's film. This is the one where he finally comes into his own and is no longer the whiny teenager that wanted to go to Tashi Station to get some power converters, and now he's the full-fledged Jedi Knight. And he's great. I agree. All right, best quote, Joseph.
But beware, anger, fear, aggression. The dark side are they. Once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. Sorry, I didn't have to act it out.
Great delivery,
I did,
though.
but I didn't.
It's all
I didn't
good,
have
man.
to.
It's all good.
That is just some of that great, like, original trilogy Yoda wisdom. I mean, there's a lot of great lines in here. There's a lot of like great, like, you know, overlord kind of like heavy, solemn dialogue from Vader and the Emperor. But I thought that was like the best line overall.
I do love that line. Yoda's got a lot of great lines. Even Obi-Wan's got some good ones, even though Alec Guinness looks like he'd rather be anywhere in the world other than a Star Wars set when he shows up.
And that scene is like such a clear expo dump. It's just like, it's not super great.
It would make Christopher Nolan blush.
And I love the idea. I love the idea of a Force ghost like taking a load off and sitting down on a real log.
He's like, look, it's been a long day showing up to other people. I need to sit down for this one. Julius, what did you get?
So be it, Jedi.
Yeah, that was good.
Well done.
Oh man, that line, I love it in so many. There's a lot of reasons why I love it, because it works in so many levels. It's the moment where Palpatine realizes, okay, this guy's not going to budge. He's committed. And he kind of admits it to him. So be it, Jedi. You know, okay, you made your choice. Now I'm going to kill you then. So you don't want to join me? I'm going to kill you. So that line, was very impactful, very, very heavy. You know, the fact that he just stares at him, and after he tells him, I'll never join the dark side. You know, I'm going to be a Jedi, just like my father was before me. And I'm not going to kill my father for you. And, you know, just him staring at him with daggers and just saying, so be it, Jedi.
I love how dismissive he is too. Just like really digs it in. Like, okay, you just want to be you just want to be a basic Jedi then. You don't want to be a Sith like us? Yeah. All right, fine.
And not only that, he also gives him the title of like, you know, in other words, he says, you are a Jedi. You really are a Jedi, which is great.
It's funny. The line, I had a few that I was, you know, going back and forth on, including my favorite, "It's a trap," which I'm not going to do the impression of.
It's a trap.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. A+. No, I had the whole line of, you know, I'm a Jedi like my father before me, and I don't know. I do think, you know, punctuating it with the "so be it, Jedi" is kind of like it's just a great exchange between the two of them.
Yeah.
It's their whole conflict. They haven't had a lightsaber fight or anything yet. They haven't, you know, really touched each other at all. And like, this is the moment with, you know, Vader struggling in the background where they finally come to blows, and Luke is no match, you know, and it is a great line. So I think the one I'm going to go with, it's kind of a cheat because it's 2 lines, but it really just encapsulates everything I love about this film. The redemption arc of Anakin is when Luke says, "We've got to go. I've got to save you." And Vader says, "You already have, Luke."
Yeah.
Tell your sister you were right. And just that whole thing is, you know, it was great to me when I was a kid, and I appreciated it. But it's something that it's moving. I think as I get older, it's just that moment of Luke like, no, I have to get you back to Endor. I got to show everyone what we did here. And he's like, no, I can't. I'm dying. This is it, you know. But you've already saved me. And it's such in direct contrast to what Vader was telling him earlier about like, oh, you know, Obi-Wan once thought like you do. You don't know the power of the dark side. And it turns out, no, there was still some humanity left in that the machinery for him to save. Which leads me to peak Star Wars moment. And I'll go first. I'll segue from there into, you know what? Even if Lucas decided to put the no in there, it's Vader saving Luke for me. I toyed with other ideas, but it really has to be that one for me. It's my favorite moment of the movie. It's a peak Star Wars moment. What'd you get, Joseph?
Yeah, I got the same thing, and I kind of narrowed it down to like a specific shot, which is where Luke is writhing on the ground, being force lightninged, and he's like, "Father, please!"
Yeah.
And then like the next shot is Vader like looking from the right of the screen from the Emperor, like just the slow tortured turn of his head down to Luke. And you can, even though he's like fully masked up, you can't actually see his facial features. There's like so much emoting going on there. And that's like right before making the pivotal choice that he does to destroy the Emperor.
Yeah, I remember the first time I heard the no that Lucas put in for his, I don't know, what was it, like his fourth time like retooling the film with special editions. So. But I don't know, for now, for some reason it gets to me. Like I used to laugh at the no in Revenge of the Sith, but I don't know, like I think that just because these films are kind of like hokey little kids movies, and they're broad strokes, storytelling. I don't know. It's effective now. Maybe I'm becoming soft, but yeah, I dig it. What'd you get, Julius?
The destruction of the Death Star, and in Return of the Jedi, because it's a callback to A New Hope, but it's it's a little fresh, it's a little new, because now the stakes are that they need to give Han Solo time to destroy that. What was that? The hub that protects that gave the Death Star the shield.
It's like the shield generator, the little base.
The shield generator, yeah. So I love that, because that's what Lucas is really good at. The ticking time clock, motif in films, and he's like the master of that. And I thought that in Jedi it came full circle, and seeing the Death Star being destroyed again as the heroes flee, to safety, was peak Star Wars moment for me.
And also our characters on the ground that get to see it from.
Oh yeah,
from
right.
Space.
Yeah, they get to see it from the ground.
Which I guess it's great that was the correct time of day. Can you imagine if like the planet was turned the other way? They'd be like, did the Death Star blow up? I don't really know. I don't see it from here, but yeah, just it really worked out that it was the timing was right. Okay, so in conclusion, let's move on to our final thoughts and personal rating. Julius, you go first.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this an 8.
Okay, wow.
An 8 because it was still entertaining. It was still solid, but some things didn't hit the point. They didn't hit the target like Empire did. I can see that this movie kind of suffered under George Lucas's success of Empire, because Star Wars was a surprise hit for him. Empire was like another gamble, but now it was an even bigger success. And then third one, it was more okay, I'm George motherfucking Lucas, so I'm gonna do what I want now. And it kind of suffered a little bit, because you mentioned earlier that he hired a producer who was essentially a yes man. And when you hire a yes man, that smells death, because as an artist myself, it's always important to have other points of view when you're developing a story, because a lot of the time, especially when I write things like comic book scripts or working with artists, they offer things that I don't even think of, and a lot of times it turns out to be a lot better than what I originally thought of. And I feel like when you have a little bit of ego that gets in the way of the creative process, it kind of ruins the story or whatever it is that you're making, be it a painting or a piece of music, whatever it may be. It kind of disrupts it a little bit. And so I feel like maybe Return of the Jedi was like, yeah, I could just imagine Lucas was like, yeah, let's get some teddy bears running around the forest and destroy the stormtroopers. Are you sure you want to do that? Yes, why not? Okay, all right. And so an 8, because it still had a lot of the great Star Wars stuff that I love. The adventure, the swashbuckling scene in the job when Luke saves Han from Jabba. And of course, the end, the chess game between the Emperor and Luke Skywalker. But again, the Ewoks still kind of like, I kind of wish the Ewoks would maybe, why not make it a planet of Wookiees? That would have made a lot more sense.
Apparently that was the original plan. So
they should have stuck with that plan. That would have been a lot better. But yeah, 8 for me.
Yeah, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10 as well. It's, I thought that it was a really good completion of the arc of the Force, and like, the triumph over of good over evil, just like kind of more generally. But there's a lot of info dumps. There's a lot of like exposition dumps in here. The pacing's kind of weird, and if I was gonna pick a Star Wars film off the shelf, I'm not sure if this is the one I'm gonna pick most.
You know what? I'm actually surprised. I thought you guys were going to come up a little bit higher on this, and I have in my notes that I'm giving it a 9, and I'm going to stick with my 9. I'm not going to try to boost it to a 10 to make your averages go up, but I don't know. I feel comfortable with a 9 on this one, and it's been a journey to get there. I think maybe 5 years ago I would have given it a 6 or a 7, but I think that over time I've started to really fall in love with this film, and like I said earlier, really appreciate it for the film that it is rather than the film that I want it to be. This is what has made me appreciate the prequels a lot more, is to just look at them at face value and ultimately come on the side of like, this is what Lucas was intending, and I'm going to appreciate it and meet it on that level as opposed to what it could have been. And there's always going to be a part of me that will wish that we could have gotten a Return of the Jedi that was as challenging as Empire Strikes Back, but we didn't. And instead, it's just a satisfying finale and a culmination of one of my all-time favorite trilogies in all of cinema. And I do think it is a satisfying conclusion. I don't know, maybe a 9 is a little high, but so, maybe it's a good thing that you guys came in with an 8. So what's that bring our average to, guys? It's going to be an 8.3.
8.3.
Yeah.
1983. Nice.
Hey, yeah. You know what? I feel good about that. I think that's good. I think when you look at the quality, a little bit of a quality drop off from the first 2 films and everything, yeah, it works. I'm happy with that. All right, guys, I think that about wraps things up for Return of the Jedi. You can find more episodes of Star Wars Breaking Canon at breakingcanonpodcast.com. You can follow us on Twitter at SWBC Podcast. If you want to support our show, please rate and review us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from. On the next episode of Star Wars Breaking Canon, we're going to the very beginning with 1999's Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Until then, thanks for listening, and may the Force be with you.